1941. A windowless room in Leeds, England. 3 workers huddle over a Monopoly board, cutting precise compartments into its surface. They speak to no one about their work, not their wives, not their children, not the police, should anyone ask. Inside that board, they are hiding silk maps, tiny compasses, and real German currency. The Germans will welcome these games into their prison camps. They will hand them directly to the men plotting escape. This is the story of MI9's escape equipment program, a secret British operation that smuggled maps inside board games, compasses inside uniform buttons, and saws inside pencils. Over 35,000 Allied servicemen escaped captivity or evaded capture using these tools. The program produced more than 2 million compasses and nearly 2 million maps, and it all began because one man failed to outsmart Harry Houdini. To understand why MI9 created history's most elaborate escape factory, you have to understand what happened to Allied airmen shot down over occupied Europe. By 1940, RAF Bomber Command was losing aircraft at catastrophic rates. Each downed plane meant 7 trained crewmen either dead or captured. The men who survived bailout faced immediate challenges. They landed in hostile territory with no maps, no compass, and no knowledge of local geography. Most were captured within hours. Those who reached POW camps faced years of captivity with virtually no chance of return. The conventional solution was to accept these losses. Prisoners were out of the war. Their training, their experience, their knowledge of British tactics and technology, all of it locked behind barbed wire until the conflict ended. But one department within British military intelligence refused to accept this. MI9 was established in December 1939 under Brigadier Norman Crockett. Its mandate was revolutionary: help captured personnel escape and return to duty. The challenge was staggering. How do you provide escape tools to men held in heavily guarded camps, searched regularly, forbidden from possessing maps or compasses? The answer required thinking like an escape artist, and that is precisely who Crockett recruited. In late 1939, a middle-aged former journalist named Christopher Clayton Hutton walked into the War Office desperate to contribute. The RAF had rejected him for his age. He had no military intelligence experience. What he did have was a 25-year obsession with escapology. In 1915, young Hutton had challenged Harry Houdini to escape from a wooden box of his own design. Houdini accepted, on one condition. He wanted to visit the timber mill and meet the carpenter. Hutton agreed, thinking nothing of it. Behind the curtain that night, Houdini simply pushed off one end of the box and stepped out. The carpenter had installed false nails for £3 in bribe money. That humiliation taught Hutton something essential. Escape is not about strength. It is about preparation, concealment, and exploiting what your captors overlook. When Hutton mentioned this story during his War Office interview, Major J.H. Russell stopped him cold. "You may be the very man we want," Russell said. "We're looking for a showman with an interest in escapology." Hutton's failed magic trick had just become his passport to the most secretive escape program of the war. Christopher Hutton identified maps as the escaper's most critical tool. A prisoner who broke out of camp faced hundreds of miles of hostile territory. Without knowing which direction led to neutral Switzerland, which rivers to follow, which border crossings to avoid, freedom meant nothing. But paper maps were useless. They rustled when handled. Guards could hear them. They fell apart when wet. A single rainstorm would destroy weeks of planning. Hutton needed something silent, waterproof, and small enough to hide inside a uniform seam. The solution was silk. Silk produced no sound when unfolded. It could compress to the size of a walnut. It survived immersion in water. A man could stuff it in his boot, swim across a river, and pull out a perfectly readable map on the other side. The production partnership came from an unlikely source: John Waddington's Limited of Leeds, the company that held the British Monopoly licence. Waddington's had mastered silk printing for royal family theatre programmes. When MI9 approached company president Norman Watson in early 1941, invoking the Official Secrets Act, Watson assigned 3 trusted employees to a locked room. They would work there for 4 years. They told no one. The technical challenges were significant. Normal ink bled when silk got wet. Hutton's team developed pectin-infused ink that bonded permanently to the fibres. As silk became scarce, reserved for parachutes, Production shifted to treated rayon and tissue paper so thin it could be crumpled, soaked, and smoothed out without damage. By war's end, British production reached 1,750,000 maps. The American program produced over 7 million more. But maps alone were insufficient. An escaper also needed direction. Hutton's compass innovations became MI9's greatest technical achievement. The first design hid miniature compasses inside uniform buttons. Brass housings contained magnetized needles balanced on tiny pivots. Early versions used standard right-hand threads. When German guards discovered some and learned to unscrew buttons during searches, Hutton switched to left-hand threads. Guards turning the buttons clockwise to open them would actually tighten them instead. Production exceeded 2,300,000 compasses by 1945. Manufacturers included J.R. Gaunt & Son, Firmin of London, and Birmingham Buttons Limited. The magnetised razor blade provided another solution. Hutton arranged with Gillette to produce blades where the letter G in the brand name pointed north when the blade was suspended on a thread. By war's end, every razor blade sold in British military exchanges was magnetised. For men already in camps, Hutton designed the programme's most ingenious delivery system, monopoly boards modified with hidden compartments. Workers used cookie-cutter dies to punch recesses into the game boards, which were thicker then, 1/8 inch compared to 1/12 inch today. Inside these compartments they placed silk maps, compasses, two-part metal files that screwed together, wire saws, and real German, Italian and French currency sandwiched between the monopoly money. A coding system indicated which maps each board contained. A period after Marylebone Station meant Italian maps. A period after Mayfair indicated Norway, Sweden and Germany. A period after free parking contained northern France and the German frontier. The Germans never discovered the monopoly scheme, not once, not throughout the entire war. If you want to understand how these tools actually reached prisoners, consider the problem Hutton faced. The Geneva Convention protected Red Cross parcels from search. Using them to smuggle escape equipment would have destroyed that protection for every prisoner in every camp. MI9 needed a different delivery method. Hutton created fictitious charitable organisations with legitimate-sounding names: the Licensed Victualers Sports Association, the Prisoners' Leisure Hours Fund, the Jigsaw Puzzle Club. Each had headed notepaper and addresses at bombed-out buildings where no one could verify their existence. Packages from these fake charities arrived at POW camps throughout Germany. The games came with instructions hidden in plain sight. Certain prisoners, designated by MI9 through coded letters, knew to look for the secret markings. They formed escape committees responsible for extracting and distributing the tools, then destroying all evidence. Victor Watson, son of the Waddington's chairman and later company head himself, estimated that 10,000 of the 35,000 total escapees used monopoly-concealed maps. When asked for precise figures, he acknowledged the uncertainty. We are not sure how many prisoners were able to escape by this method. What we do know is the scheme's perfect security record. When the war ended in September 1945, Watson later recalled, there was just one escape kit the Germans had not discovered: Monopoly. Every modified board had been destroyed by prisoners after extraction. No originals survive. The playing card program operated similarly. The United States Playing Card Company, manufacturer of bicycle brand cards, partnered with American intelligence to produce decks where each card contained map segments between laminated layers. When soaked in water, the layers separated to reveal the hidden maps. The joker typically contained the key showing how to assemble the pieces. At least 32 prisoners escaped from Colditz Castle using playing card maps. Thousands more decks were distributed across German camps. Other concealment devices expanded the arsenal. The hairbrush escape kit, designed by Charles Fraser Smith, featured a hollowed back containing a compass, map, and saw. The joint was concealed by a coating of simulated dandruff. RAF escape boots issued from 1943 featured hollow heels containing maps, compasses, and files. The suede leggings could be cut away to create civilian-looking shoes. The American program at Fort Hunt, Virginia, codenamed P.O. Box 1142, shipped 80 to 120 parcels daily at peak capacity. Its innovations included baseballs wound with radio transmitter components and cribbage boards loaded with tools. On August 20, 1945, the War Department ordered all MISX records destroyed in a 36-hour burn session. If you're finding value in these stories of Allied ingenuity, consider subscribing. Here is where we must be honest about what MI9's equipment could not do. The tools provided opportunity. They did not guarantee success. The Great Escape from Stalag Luft. 3 in March 1944 demonstrates both the program's capabilities and its tragic limitations. MI6 had been sending escape aids to that camp for 5 months. The escape committee had accumulated maps, compasses, forged documents, and civilian clothing. 76 men made it out of the tunnel on the night of March 24th. Only 3 reached safety. The Gestapo executed 50 of the recaptured officers. German security officer Reinhold Eggers, stationed at Colditz Castle, foiled over 300 escape attempts and built a museum of captured tools within the prison walls. When guards learned to search for button compasses, many were discovered. When X-ray machines were deployed at camps, significant quantities of escape materials were intercepted. The silk maps and hidden compasses did not make escape easy. What they did was make escape possible. They transformed prisoners from passive captives into active participants in their own liberation. That psychological shift mattered as much as any physical tool. The MI9 program shaped escape and evasion doctrine for generations. Modern SERE training, survival, evasion, resistance, escape, traces directly to MI9 and MISX methods developed during the war. Air Force evasion charts evolved from wartime silk maps through vinyl plastic to today's waterproof Tyvek material. The principle remains identical. Give downed air crews the tools to return home. Airey Neave became the first British officer to escape Colditz Castle in January 1942. He later joined MI9 as an intelligence officer coordinating escape lines across occupied Europe. His work helped hundreds of evaders reach safety through networks of safe houses stretching from the Netherlands to Spain. The connection between MI9's technical section and Ian Fleming's James Bond gadgeteer remains circumstantial but compelling. Charles Fraser Smith, who designed many concealment devices alongside Hutton, called his creations Q devices after World War I Q ships. Fleming, serving in naval intelligence, would have known of both programs. Christopher Clayton Hutton died in September 1965 at age 71. His battle with British bureaucracy lasted almost as long as his wartime service. The Air Ministry blocked his memoir for nearly a decade, threatening prosecution under the Official Secrets Act. When the censored version appeared in 1955 with 2/3 of the content removed, Hutton fought it to the High Court. His unredacted memoir, Official Secret, finally appeared in 1960. The publisher's note offered fitting tribute. Here was a case in which we had a moral obligation to see that the author should, after years of frustration and disappointment, be allowed to tell his remarkable story. Artifacts from the program survive at the Imperial War Museum in London, the International Spy Museum in Washington, and the Australian War Memorial. The modified Monopoly boards themselves, every single one, were destroyed by the prisoners who used them. 1941. A windowless room in Leeds. 3 workers cutting compartments into a children's game. They could not know that their secret work would help 35,000 men find their way home. They could not know the Germans would welcome these boards into prison camps and hand them directly to the men plotting escape. They knew only that the work mattered, and they told no one. History remembers the men who escaped. It should also remember those who gave them the tools. When the tools of childhood become instruments of war, the game changes forever. Now I want to hear your assessment. The button compass, the silk map, the modified Monopoly board. Which of these innovations do you consider the most effective piece of escape equipment? Which one would you have wanted in your pocket behind enemy